Hello, good afternoon, everybody. This is going to be a bilingual informational video. Hopefully, this will help you understand certain things or just have new ideas for our bilingual students. In this video, we will be talking about the legislature update, getting to know your students, linguistic instructional accommodations, IRIs and running records, elpac yearly training, and the teacher and parent resources that we have available. The legislator update. The SB 2066 updates the education code to change the term limited English proficient, better known as LEP, to emergent bilingual, or EB, which is a term better reflecting students' bilingual potential and strengths. The state is moving towards an additive perspective. Getting to know your students. In the next week or so, you will be receiving a folder with your EL roster in it. In your EL roster, you will find very important information about your students and their acquisition of language. The EL roster this year, they've added a legend, so there you can see what the different codes mean. Some information that you will find on here, aside from the student ID, student name, and obviously the teacher, will be the EL indicator, the program the student is in, whether it's a bilingual program, and in the bilingual program it's the dual language or the ESL program. Okay, we will also see whether the students have parental permission. So in this case, this student right here has a C. The student has declined services, bilingual services. So that's why this student has a C. The student that has a D is getting bilingual services. In the EL roster, you will find the English and Spanish levels, along with any DELPA scores that we have from the students with the dates. If by any chance any of your students have a little asterisk next to the different domains, that means that the student did not participate in DELPAs last year. So those are just scores from previous years. You will also find for our upper grades, 4th and 5th grade, you will find testing information for STAR. Whether the student passed the test. We have reading, writing, and math. And you will also find what language the students took the test in. This is also another good indicator of the home language that the students have at home. How many years they've been in the States. And if they have any special education codes, you will see that here as well. Now, where do you find this information? Well, one of the places you can go into is Frontline. You can access Frontline via your teacher portal. You go to Frontline right here. And you go to Frontline Special Education and Interventions. And here you can go into Archive Manager. And you can type in any of your kids' names. For example, I will type in my kids. They will both pop up. If they have an IEP, 504, anything that they have archived through Frontline, it will appear here. So I am going to click on the elpac, choose a FERPA reason, and you will see all the archives here. Every folder is labeled with the year and what that folder is for. So you can go into the elpac folder, and here you will see anything that was archived that year, whether it's placement, language of testing, any TELPAS information, and then the end of the year recommendation for your student. So you can click on that and you can see whether the student has been recommended for bilingual services and if parents accept it. This particular one, the code is E, but it's just because of the type of program the student is in. But this means that the student is receiving services. Okay. Another place where you can find information on your student or whether or not your student is a bilingual student, you can go into CMS, which can also be accessed through your portal. Go into CMS. Your view might be a little bit different than mine. I usually go up here to find a student. I'm going to use the same student. And typically on the student overview page, you can scroll towards the bottom or the middle of the page and you can see whether the student is a bilingual student. LEP, here it says yes. And you can possibly find other information about your student. As I mentioned before, you will have access to your EL roster. We will be updating that as needed. Some of you may have the same students throughout the whole year, as opposed to some of you may be getting new students or students leaving your class. So we will be updating that as needed only. If you don't get anything from us, that means your EL roster has stayed the same. Sometimes we don't know for a while whether there's a new student because we don't know until they send us information about a student getting tested. So if you get a new student and it's been a couple of weeks and you haven't received an EL roster from us, please make sure to contact either Yadira Castellano or myself, Sonia Solorzano, and we can definitely look up the information for you whether you have a new EL student. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to go over here is the linguistic instructional accommodations. We do ask that you refer to these documents as you plan for instruction or small group support according to language needs. So here you will see the PLDs, and you can look at the PLDs, the different proficiency levels, and you can plan, like I said, accordingly for your small groups. The next thing I do want to go over is the bilingual student data sheet. The language of STAR assessment. This mainly pertains to grades 3rd, 4th, and 5th. There we go. So we are giving you this right now so you can start taking any data for any of those students that are still testing in Spanish. or receiving Spanish instruction, we do ask that you take data of tests, of different, their different reading levels. We try not to use ISEP just because it's a computer-based test, but you can simply do IRIs, or you can do running records as well, just to keep track of the levels in the both languages, or just any assessments, writing samples, anything that you have. We ask that you take this information so when it comes down to our meeting in the spring, you can be ready with that information so we can make a decision. And when I say we, I mean the elpac committee that's going to meet at the time. We can make a decision of the language of testing for these students if in case you do want to switch from Spanish over to English. Please keep a record of this, keep any work samples that you may have available, so like that it will be an easier decision to make. Okay. For IRIs and running records, this first part of the information will be for our dual language teachers. So any and all students in the dual language program should be tested every 9 weeks in both languages. What we can do is you can administer one of the tests in one of the languages, and then Yadira and I can help out with the other language. So like that, it can be if you have kids that are on level, we can do running records to see, more or less what level they are in the other language. We do ask that this information, just like we did last year at the end of the year for those of you that were here, the information is that the language of instruction should be put in the comment, not in the comments, but it should be put in the report card in the reading level section. But the other language, the level be put in the comment box. The same thing goes for students in the transition program, especially those that are still doing more Spanish than English. This is a good way to help you gather data, for those students that you want to switch over when it comes down to testing from Spanish to English. We also recommend that you do test in both languages to see their levels. And we are going to, later on in this presentation, we are going to show you a resource that can be helpful when you are having conferences with parents, or just for you to see where your students are more or less. Next thing is the elpac yearly training. As of this year, the district did let us know that we all need to be doing elpac training yearly. This training is due on September 29th. Please, we do ask that you turn in your certificates. I believe it's going to be 6 certificates stapled. Turn them in to either Yadira's or my box so we can have in the elpac binder. Some cool teacher and parent resources. For those of you, I know sometimes when you are translating documents, you want to think of a better word to, in anything that you're translating, and it just doesn't come to mind. A lot of people tend to use Google Translate, and unfortunately that's not the best translator. But we do have one resource that we do use often is DeepL, and I'm going to click on this so I can show you real quick. So you choose your language, or just if you already have it set up,